delighted to welcome Clive Allen to the show to look ahead to the new Premier League season. Clive, how are you getting on?
I'm good, thank you. Good morning.
We've had a couple of Tottenham Hotspur fans on the show already this morning. They were reminiscing in your glory days as a forward, a goal-scoring forward. Could I just ask, first off, Clive, if you were playing in the modern game, how do you think you would fare, just given the way goal-scoring has become shared so much between a front two, a front three quite often?
Well, I do think the art of the goal scorer is dying in respect, as you say, of sharing the goals around. Perhaps Harry Kane, a prime example of that. Fantastic goal scorer, but will develop play deeper down the field. So I think that's just part and parcel of the modern game. I would just like to think that I'd be in the right place at the right time and continue to score goals, which is what win games in the end.
It's going to be a really interesting case study this season, isn't it, with regards to Erling Haaland, where possibly the most high-profile signing of the entire summer window is a centre forward in the more traditional mould. And what we expect Erling Haaland to do is to score goals, and lots of them. It is a little bit of a throwback, isn't it?
I believe it is, and I think that it was if there was something missing from Manchester City, hence their interest in Harry Kane last summer. Adding Haaland this summer, I think, is a magnificent coup. Just 22 years of age, he is the atypical centre forward, scores goals, will give Manchester City a new dimension this year. It just might take time for them to adjust to the way he plays, and obviously the way that they played and won the Premier League last year.
What sort of adjustments does he need to make? Because it seemed if we're getting carried away on the Community Shield, there might be a little bit of a bedding-in process.
Yeah, I think he's going to have to be patient, because I think sometimes he will expect the delivery of the ball and it might not come because of the way City dominate possession, especially in the midfield area. But I think if he keeps making those runs with the quality that they have within that City midfield, De Bruyne in particular, they will start to find him, pick his runs. We saw that with Grealish providing for him in the winning goal he scored against Bayern Munich in the recent pre-season game. So it's going to take time to develop, but there's no doubt that I think he'll be a big star for Man City.
He does have all the attributes to succeed in the Premier League, it seems. Is there anything at all about him that would concern you in terms of how quickly he might get up to speed?
Well, I think it will be that he needs to be patient. Okay. He needs to understand that it will take a little time. But I think that he seems to have an old head on young shoulders. And he'll adapt. He looks very, very determined and excited about joining City. And I think it will pay dividends over the course of the season.
We've asked you before coming on air to pick your top four and your bottom three. So what we might do, Clive, is just get your top four first and go through them. So who are you looking at this season as number 1 to number 4?
Well, I think a lot of people will agree. City, for me, will win it again. And I think that the addition of Haaland is a good one. It's made them even stronger, which was difficult to do. I think Liverpool looked fantastic, especially last weekend. It looks as if they're going to hit the ground running. They will run City very, very close. I think that the addition of Núñez, their front line, obviously, it's a work in progress at Liverpool in that Klopp seems to be able to change players around but still get the right results. I think, Van Dijk back in regularly at the heart of the defence has made them rock solid defensively. We know they can score goals. So I see Liverpool running Man City very close again. I think from then on down, it's very, very interesting because of the way things are unfolding. I think Spurs have done fantastic business in the summer, and they've done it early, which is unusual for them. I think that Conte's stamped his mark on the team. The way they finished last season was really impressive. Qualified for the Champions League. To take that on, he needed addition in players, strengthen the squad, which they've done. So I'm going to go Spurs third and Chelsea fourth. I think Chelsea, again, in a little bit of turmoil because of the changes, not necessarily with the team, but certainly behind the scenes with the ownership, etc. But I think that Tuchel has had to make some signings because of losing perhaps a whole defensive line. So Koulibaly coming in is going to be a really interesting one to watch as to how he adapts to Premier League football. Fantastic defender, but he will find it difficult, I believe. And Chelsea, again, because of the addition, Raheem Sterling arriving, the changes that they've made, it will take them a little while, I think, to reassemble their authority that they had last season. So I'm going for Chelsea fourth.
Is there a chance that Tottenham actually push on and give Liverpool and Manchester City cause to look over their shoulder this season?
Well, I think they've got some strength in depth now, and I think that will be advantageous as the season unfolds. Obviously, they're going to be in the Champions League, which was definitely the goal. The end of last season was finishing fourth, qualified in the Champions League. So that brings its demands, and it is a squad that is just come together in terms of the numbers. It's going to be fascinating how Conte juggles that squad, interchanges the players. I think that he's added really well in the departments that needed strengthening. So, I think if Spurs get off to a good start and carry the confidence they had from the end of last season into this, they could well be closer than any teams to City and Liverpool.
It does feel that there's genuine optimism around the club that the success that they saw at the end of last season could be sustainable in the long term. I guess the one caveat to that is the man who's brought that sustainable looking level of success is Antonio Conte, who is very rarely attached with the idea of sustainability. His entire track record suggests a short-term fix.
Well, that's right. He demands success. He wants success, and if he doesn't get it, he leaves what he's done. He's quite happy to move on, and I think we've seen that with the jobs he's had, with the success he's achieved. He goes about it in his own style. He's certainly not changed that approach in the way that what he's brought to Spurs. So, again, time will tell, but I do think that certainly the direction is going perfectly for Spurs at the moment. Their intention was to bring him in to qualify for Champions League. That was achieved. So the next step is now in front of them.
So, Clive, you're looking at Spurs as the top team in London this year, and you have Chelsea next. Do you see Arsenal being far off this year? Because there seems to be optimism around maybe some of their pre-season recruitment that they might be closer. Like, in your eyes, do you think that's feasible?
Yes, I do. I think it is. I think that they were in pole position last season to qualify for Champions League, and I think maybe just the age of the squad come to bear at the end, where there was a big game, a massive game at Spurs, which they lost, and from there they never really recovered. I think the additions of Zinchenko and Jesus, obviously coming from City, they know how to win. They know what it took to win, and they will bring that to this Arsenal squad. I think it's a talented squad. Again, I think Arteta's got a difficult job in the way that he manages that squad this season. The expectation will certainly be that they could be contenders for the top four. I would have them chasing Chelsea close in fifth.
What's your opinion on Gabriel Jesus?
I think he needed the move, if I'm perfectly honest. I think that at City, it just seemed to me that he had to have 3 or 4 chances to score the one goal. And I just think perhaps now, where he becomes number one or the number one striker at Arsenal, that he can relax a little bit in front of goal. Arsenal will create chances, will give him opportunities. And I can see him flourishing for Arsenal. I think it's a good move for him, and it's certainly a good acquisition for Arsenal.
It's always interesting, Clive, before we talk to you about which club we focus on. With Arsenal, and when we ask you about Arsenal, what sort of memories does that evoke for you? Is it a sort of strange thing to kind of be attached to the club still, given how it all went for you, or how do you feel about your time at Arsenal?
Well, I was 18. It was an incredible period of my career. Obviously, I was very young. First £1 million transfer for a teenager, that weighed heavily on my shoulders. And I lasted just 63 days. I played for Arsenal for 63 days, 2.5 pre-season friendlies, so not really a competitive game. I always said I grew up in that summer of 1980 very, very quickly. And I have to say, it set me on my way. It was bizarre. Looking back on it now, people say, "What happened?" And it was quite incredible. But no, Arsenal have been very, very successful. Obviously, under Arsene Wenger, quite invincible at times, and their football was magnificent. Historic football club, fantastic football club, and I'm proud to say that I actually was an Arsenal player very briefly.
Why did they get rid of you?
It was a case of supply and demand, really. Sammy Nelson, the left back, picked up a bad knee injury in pre-season. They needed a left back. Kenny Sansom was the man that they wanted. The only way that deal could be done was that if they traded me, Terry Venables wanted me to go to Palace, and that was the only way he would let Kenny Sansom go. So, yeah, it was quite crazy, but obviously it's all history now.
I'm not an economist, but I would assume getting rid of a £1 million teenager after such a short period of time isn't exactly great business.
Well, I think they would say Kenny was a magnificent servant for Arsenal, brilliant left back over the years, and they felt that was their priority.
It didn't work out too badly for you in the long run. If we were to pick a point where your career peaked, Clive, are we talking 86, 87, the 49 goals? I mean, statistically it sticks out off your stat sheet so brilliantly. Is that what felt like your best football as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a magnificent team. You know, when you're playing with the likes of Ozzy Ardiles, Glenn Hoddle, Chris Waddle, my cousin Paul was there. We played in a style that certainly suited me. People said, "Oh, you played up front on your own." That was never really the case because of the quality of the players, the interplay, the movement that we had. So yeah, without a doubt, that was the best period of my career. Magnificent season, one that I'd probably be remembered for. 49 goals in the season's not bad.
Absolutely not. For people who didn't see much of that team, can you talk to us a little bit about how yourself, Hoddle and Waddle all played together?
Yeah, it was very interesting. David Pleat came up with the idea with the players that we had at our disposal. And basically, it was a five-man midfield, which no one had ever deployed before. And it meant that Glenn was the free player. The way that we passed the ball, short into passing, Glenn became a free player. We overloaded midfield, and teams just didn't know how to deal with it. Traditional 4-4-2 opponents, they found that we just kept the ball. We certainly passed the ball well with the ability that they had. And when you've got, Chris Waddle's ability off the flank, Glenn Hoddle's passing, Ozzy Ardiles, my cousin Paul off the right, I got chance after chance playing in that way. And teams found it very difficult to combat what we were doing.
Yeah, and you went to France then, which is sort of I suppose we're so used now to the Premier League is the hub for everywhere. The power of the Premier League, it's everyone from around the world is sort of. It seems like that's their intended destination, but it would surprise people now that there was actually an exodus from English football in that period of time. That it wasn't just you. There was a sort of a spate of really high-profile English players or English-based players who went abroad at that point.
Yeah, that's right. I think just following me, Glenn Hoddle, Mark Haitley went to Monaco, Mo Johnson went to play at Nantes. There was players who were playing in Italy, Germany, and it was something that I think it was pretty new at the time because some of the Italian football probably was the most powerful at that particular time. So that was a destination for the best players in the world. French football was very interesting, multinational, lots of there was players from all over the world playing in French football, and I was given the opportunity. I went out of contract at Spurs and was given the opportunity. I was 28, and I'd always had that ambition to play abroad at some stage in my career, and I had to do it then. That was the position I was in, and I went to Bordeaux. Bordeaux were a very powerful side in French football at that time, and a magnificent experience. I sit here today, and I've always said, I wouldn't have wanted to sit and regret that I didn't take that opportunity at that stage of my career.
How much success did you have that season in Bordeaux?
I finished top scorer for Bordeaux. We went to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup, lost to Diego Maradona's Napoli, who went on to win it. We finished third in the league, which was disappointing for Bordeaux. We had a disastrous cup exit third round against Beauvais, who were a third division side. So that was very disappointing. But played with Jean Tigana, a magnificent captain. Enzo Schifo, Belgium midfield player, who was a wonderful technician. And the infamous Eric Cantona as well. The last 3 months of my time at Bordeaux, Eric came and played, and I played with Eric when he was very young. Enfant terrible, but an unbelievable talent.
Did you know how good he was going to be?
I would say no at that time, but you could see that he had a real presence about him, confidence, undoubted ability. And obviously it wasn't until a number of years later that he turned up at Leeds and then Manchester United that, I think Eric fulfilled all the potential that they thought that he had.
Did he wear the collars up in the Bordeaux shirt?
He certainly did. He
Nice.
certainly did. Yeah, he wasn't shy, was Eric?
So, am I right in saying that you would have played at the San Paolo with Maradona in the side? What was that experience like?
Well, quite incredible. That was a Napoli team that basically Maradona picked up by the coattails and took them to the Scudetto, the UEFA Cup, and he was extraordinary. I had the pleasure of playing with him at Spurs in Ozzy's testimonial a few years later. And, he was the best player in the world at the time. And him and Glenn Hoddle were just on another level when they played together that night. So, it was very, very fortunate to have played on the same field as Diego, played against him and played with him. Was
it just electric when he got the ball in front of those Napoli fans?
Yeah, it was just sensational. Just everything that he did, it was so natural. It was so easy for him. He was so quick, technically a player that I'd never come up against or never seen before. It was quite extraordinary.
Like it does sound like one of the more fascinating periods of your career, Clive, even though everybody remembers, the 49-goal season for Tottenham. And I wonder if you're talking to any young footballers at the moment in England, I presume you'd advise a lot of them to go and experience other leagues if they ever get the opportunity. It's just the problem is you can sometimes be a victim of your own success, where the Premier League has all the money right now and you'll rarely get that opportunity if you're any good.
Yeah, that's right. I think, I certainly enjoyed that experience. I was glad that I went through it. I now cover, obviously, French football for BT now. And it's something that, I have an understanding and feeling for, having experienced it. But I think for any young player, especially if they perhaps don't make the progression that they hope to earlier on in their career, to give them the opportunity to go and experience foreign country, a different style of football, I think that just develops them, not only as footballers, but as people as well. And I think that you would find that a lot of players will flourish if they took that opportunity, if it was presented to them.
Because just looking, Clive, I mean, it is 30 years this year since the Premier League, since the transition to sort of the Premier League era. I was looking, you played with West Ham, who got promoted that season. You're sort of in the second tier. I'm just wondering, did you have a sense then of how the Premier League was going to explode? Because I've been looking at it the last week. You would look at a lot of games, and of the 22 players on the pitch, you might have 22 English players or Scottish players or players from this part of the world. Was there any sense then at that time that the game was about to change so dramatically in England?
No, I don't think there was. I think that it was obviously a progression. It was a new era, but I don't think anybody had the real inclination or belief that it could become what it is today. It is the toughest league in the world. I think the globally now you can go anywhere in the world and they love the Premier League. They love the competition. They love the way that it entertains. It never ceases to amaze into what it produces. And it's grown to something that's quite extraordinary. I did play in the Premier League, 5 Premier League games right at the very start. And I'm proud to say that I did, because, the Premier League is the best league in the world, and it will attract the best players. And I think that really is why it is so special.
Just one last thing before we let you go, Clive. We also asked you for who you think are going to get relegated from the Premier League this season. So who are your bottom 3, do you think?
Well, this was a tough one, because I think, that for me, there's a big divide in the Premier League. I think we can look at, the potential top 10 teams, and I think we'll pretty much get all of those. I think, and then there's 10 in the bottom half that are going to be scrapping for a lot of the season. I think it's going to be very a close run thing. For me, I think Bournemouth are going to finish bottom. They're going to struggle. I know Scotty Parker worked with him at Spurs, did a great job to get Bournemouth up, but I think they're going to find it very difficult. And I'm looking at what I saw last season. Brentford, for me, I saw them play at Spurs towards the end of last season, thought they were very disappointing. It is going to be their second season in the Premier League. I think that clubs are going to be far more aware of what they do, how they do it. Losing Eriksen, I think it could be a massive blow to them in terms of how their season unfolds. So I'm going Brentford second bottom. And for me, Southampton, I thought Southampton had a really awful finish to last season. They need to get up and running quickly, because if not, I think it's going to be a very difficult season for Southampton. And I'm going for Southampton to go as the third team.
Okay, very good. Clive, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. Thanks so much for coming on the show this morning.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.